Survivalist vanished in Ozarks. 3 years later, coordinates are found etched on a turtle. The story of the man, who some sources name as Nathan or Kellen Cole, is not just a missing person case. It's a chilling testament to the fine line between wilderness mastery and human frailty. He was a man who believed he could read the wilderness like a book, but he couldn't see the final chapter being written for him. And it would take an ancient, slow-moving creature to finally show searchers the page. In the vast, unforgiving wilderness of the Ozarks, an expert survivalist vanished without a trace. For 3 years, the case went cold, leaving behind only questions and a grieving family. But then, the silence was broken by one of the most bizarre clues imaginable: a turtle with a set of coordinates mysteriously etched into its shell. This discovery didn't just reignite a desperate search, it deepened a 3-year-old mystery. The Ozark wilderness doesn't just swallow people. It feels like it digests them slowly, dissolving every trace of their passage across an unforgiving landscape of deep ravines and dense forest. This is the story of what happens when the wilderness decides to send a message back. Section 1. The Man Who Knew the Woods. So, how does a man who knows the woods inside and out simply cease to exist? First, you have to understand who he was. This wasn't your weekend camper or a casual hiker. He was a purist, a modern-day frontiersman who saw the wilderness not as a place to visit, but as a place to belong. Friends and family described him as a man more comfortable in the company of trees than of people. He never sought the spotlight. He sought solitude. His expertise was born from a lifetime of learning on the edge of the Ozark National Forest. He knew the old ways: how to track, find water, and build a shelter with next to nothing. He had a philosophy he shared with the few students he took on. Technology is a crutch that makes you forget how to walk. A GPS can fail. A compass can break. But the sun, the stars, the flow of water, these things never lie. It's this purist mindset that made his disappearance so baffling. This was a man who prided himself on self-reliance. His sister, Sarah, often joked that if the world ended, his cabin would be the first place she'd run. And then there's the setting for this mystery, the Ozarks. This is not a gentle landscape. It's a sprawling, ancient plateau covering nearly 47,000 square miles, a labyrinth of steep, forested hills, deep ravines known as hollers, and one of the most extensive cave systems in the world. For centuries, it's been a refuge for those wanting to disappear. The forest has a reputation for keeping secrets. People have walked into these woods and never been seen again, their stories fading into local folklore. The survivalist knew these stories. He respected them. He just never believed he'd become one. In the spring of 2021, he decided to embark on a solo expedition. It was nothing new for him. He planned a 2-week trek through a rugged, remote section of the Ozark National Forest. He packed light: his trusted knife, a small tarp, a flint and steel, and his journal. He left his phone and other modern electronics behind, as he always did. He checked in at a ranger station on April 12th, sharing his intended route and expected return date of April 26th. It was the last confirmed time anyone saw him alive. The first few days seemed normal. A group of hikers on a distant trail recalled seeing a lone man matching his description, moving with purpose far from any marked path. He just gave a silent nod before melting back into the trees. Then, nothing. April 26th came and went. At first, his family wasn't panicked. He was known to extend trips by a day or two. But when 3 days passed with no word, a knot of dread began to tighten. This was a violation of his own strict code. On April 29th, his sister called the Park Service and officially reported him missing. Section 2. The Silent Search. The search began almost immediately. His truck was found right where he'd left it at the trailhead, covered in a thin layer of pollen and leaves. Search and rescue teams from 3 counties converged with trackers, canine units, and helicopters. But the Ozarks are a formidable opponent. From the air, the forest canopy was an unbroken sea of green, concealing the ground below. On the ground, the challenges were even greater. The search area covered hundreds of square miles of brutally difficult terrain. Teams navigated steep, slick hillsides and dense thickets of briars. The dogs, usually a searcher's best tool, seemed strangely agitated, with some handlers reporting their canines grew skittish and refused to follow a scent in certain areas. One veteran searcher later told a reporter, "I've never felt the woods be so dead of sound. It was like the birds, the insects, everything was holding its breath. It was just wrong." But the most frustrating part? The complete lack of clues. He was a ghost. As a survival expert, he moved with minimal impact. But this was different. No snapped branches, no footprints, not a single thread of clothing. They were searching for an expert in concealment. After 2 weeks of intense, exhaustive searching, the official search was scaled back. His family was left with a gaping void of uncertainty. For 3 years, the mystery of what happened to him was a story told in whispers, a cautionary tale for hikers. The wilderness had taken him, and it was keeping it secret. Section 3. A message on a shell. 3 years is a long time. It's long enough for hope to curdle into a dull ache. For his family, the years passed in a blur of unanswered questions. Then, in the summer of 2024, the mystery was wrenched back into the light by a discovery so improbable it sounds like a folk tale. The discovery was made by 2 graduate students studying native turtle species in a remote waterway, a significant distance south of where the man was last seen. They netted an unusually large alligator snapping turtle, its dark, ridged shell caked in algae. As they cleaned its carapace, they felt something unnatural. Underneath the slime were fine, precise lines, clearly etched with a sharp tool. They carefully cleaned the entire shell. Scratched into the turtle's back was a series of numbers and letters, a set of GPS coordinates. The etching was weathered but legible. Someone had painstakingly carved a location into its back, turning the animal into something like a living message in a bottle. After documenting the find with their phones, they called the county sheriff's department. The initial reaction was deep skepticism, but the photos were compelling. The information eventually landed on the desk of Sheriff Frank Miller, who had been involved in the original search. When he saw the coordinates, he had a deputy run them immediately. They pointed to a location deep within the Ozark National Forest, in a brutally rugged ravine many miles from where the original search had focused. He pulled the cold case file. The timing, the location, the sheer strangeness of it all. It couldn't be a coincidence. The phone call to the man's sister sent a shockwave through her world, a terrifying mix of hope and dread. After 3 years of silence, the wilderness had finally offered a clue. Section 4. Following the turtle's map. The discovery transformed the cold case overnight. A small, specialized team was assembled for a targeted mission to a specific point on the map. The journey took the better part of 2 days, leading them into a sector of the forest considered nearly impassable. On the second day, their GPS units indicated they had arrived. They stood on the edge of a deep, shadowy ravine. As they made their way down, they found the rusted remnants of old moonshine stills, half swallowed by the earth. A few yards further, they found what they were looking for, the remains of a primitive campsite. A crude, collapsing lean-to and a cold fire pit. Someone had lived here for a while. But it was what they reportedly found at the back of the clearing that made the air turn cold. Hidden behind a disguised panel of woven branches was the entrance to a small, man-made bunker carved into the hillside. With their hearts pounding, the team pried open the door. The bunker was small and musty. It was empty. There was no body. But in one corner sat a pile of gear, a water filter, a cooking pot, and a worn, leather-bound journal. The gear was instantly recognizable from the inventory list in the missing man's case file. This was his. But according to some accounts of the discovery, There were other things in the bunker, too. Things that didn't belong to a survival purist. Reports mentioned empty cans of store-bought food, a second, cheaper journal with different handwriting, and a tarnished silver locket with a faded picture of a woman and child. He had been here. He had lived here. But he wasn't here now. And it seemed he hadn't been alone. The discovery didn't solve the mystery. It blew it wide open. The simple narrative of a survivalist lost to the elements was gone, replaced by something far more disturbing. A labyrinth of theories. The discovery of the bunker and its strange contents sent the investigation spiraling. The two journals, if reports are accurate, became the focus. The survivalist journal allegedly detailed his first week before shifting to an increasingly paranoid tone, describing the feeling of being watched. The last entry was said to be abrupt and shaky. Not alone. He found me. Leaving route. South. The second journal was reportedly filled with rambling thoughts on government conspiracies and references to a hidden community. Investigators were left with several dominant theories. Theory 1. The desperate survivor. The most straightforward theory is that he got into trouble, injured, lost, or had his gear destroyed, and stumbled upon this old, hidden camp. As his situation grew dire, he enacted a last-ditch plan. He caught the massive turtle and carved the coordinates into its shell, a final message so his remains might one day be found. In this scenario, he eventually perished, and his body was later removed, either by animals or, more disturbingly, by another person. This would explain the empty bunker but leaves a critical question. Who was the other person, and why leave his journal behind? Theory 2. The intentional disappearance. Could it be that he never intended to come back? Maybe this trip was an escape, a way to create a new, solitary life off the grid. The camp was his destination all along. But if you want to disappear, why leave a map? Perhaps after years of isolation, he had a change of heart, got sick, or grew lonely. The turtle wasn't a map to his body. It was a cry for rescue. This suggests that after releasing the turtle, he either tried to hike out and perished elsewhere, or he and a possible companion simply moved to an even more remote location. Theory 3. Foul play and a hidden community. This is the darkest theory. The idea is that he stumbled upon something he wasn't supposed to see. The old stills suggest the area was used by people operating outside the law. What if it was still in use? The second journal's paranoid tone points to the possible existence of an isolated community determined to protect its secrecy. In this scenario, he discovered their camp. Was he killed? Or, given his skills, was he taken in? His journal entry, "He found me," sounds personal. The turtle clue becomes deeply complex here. Maybe he carved it as a secret act of defiance. Or maybe, years later, a member of the community with a guilty conscience released the turtle as an anonymous message. This theory would account for the second journal and the empty bunker, transforming the wilderness into a place that holds human darkness. Theory 4. The unexplained. Finally, there are the elements no theory can neatly explain. The sheer improbability of the turtle being found, the unsettling silence reported by the first search teams, and the deliberate, almost poetic nature of the clue itself. A turtle is a patient, time-delayed messenger. It doesn't feel like the frantic act of a dying man. It feels meticulously crafted. This opens the door to endless speculation. What if the truth of what happened is far stranger than anyone is willing to consider? The discovery of the turtle and the hidden bunker didn't bring closure. It only replaced one mystery with a dozen more. We know where he was, but we don't know what happened, who he was with, or where he is now. The case remains open, stalled while waiting for another impossible clue to surface from the depths of the Ozark woods. The turtle, a creature that can live for a century, became an unknowing chronicler of a human tragedy, carrying a secret map through dark waters for years. The story of the missing survivalist is a chilling reminder that sometimes The greatest dangers in the wilderness are not the elements, but the other people hiding there. What do you believe happened in that remote Ozark ravine? Was it a tragic accident, an intentional escape, or something far more sinister? Share your theories in the comments below. If you found this investigation into the unknown compelling, please like this video and subscribe for more explorations of enduring mysteries.